Okay, 163 participants.
I think we give it a few minutes before we start.
Okay, I'm the host, but I think they're already there.
You're able to share the screen, right?
I think they can hear us.
Yes, they can hear.
Okay, should we begin? 239, 240.
I think let's wait for like 1 minute and then we can start. The numbers are still building up.
All right, 2 people have raised hands, but I cannot see them. Hi everyone. Hi Girish, good to see you again. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I think we can start.
All right, so hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you all again. For those who know me. Okay, so this is a 1-hour presentation. So we will need to quickly kick off. I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but I did a webinar for Skills Future and for Smart Nation this morning. And I'll be using the same slides, but I will not be covering everything that I've done in the morning session because it includes data governance, and we really won't have time to run through data governance as well. So without using the words that I really don't like, which is without further ado, let us begin. Okay, for those who know me, you know me. For those who don't know me, my name is Yang Yen Tao. Not Yen Tao, Yen Tao. But of course, feel free, easier to refer to me as YT. That serves pretty much well as well. Okay, some of the slides are copyrighted. All right. For those who don't know me yet, let me just give you a very brief introduction about myself. So I'm YT, essentially a lawyer by training and profession for a few decades. And yeah, all right, there would have been a little disturbance, should have been cleared now. And yeah, I used to be in private practice for most of my time, but not recently, a few years ago, I moved to in-house practice. And I used to be a general counsel for a listed company. I used to be in-house counsel for a few other SMEs and then smaller startups as well. Now I'm a contracted in-house lawyer. So I just move in to help companies on a limited basis, a gun for hire, if you wish. Management consultancy is also my profession. I'm a registered RMC, so I help companies to access grants in Singapore. Yeah, and the recent times we have managed to get in the month of July and August, we managed to get about 5 Enterprise Singapore grants for various clients. So that's great. And of course, lastly, training is my passion. So I really love training. Those of you who've been involved with me, you know, I like saying that training has given me the most happiness, the most gray hair, and the most hair loss, because, you know, adult students are fun to deal with, right? So that's a brief background. Training takes up about 70% of my time simply because I like it. Not very scalable, but there, yep. Right. So what we are looking at today is essentially clear some misconceptions about personal data, gain a little more understanding about PDPA, enough to whet our appetite to learn more. As you're all aware, NTUC offers the fundamentals of PDPA course, a 3-day course. There we do a lot of experiential sharing, adult learning, not the best of phrases, I'm afraid, adult training and adult learning, but that's the word we have. And yeah, how does it apply to both, to the two hats that I wear, right? How does it apply to me as an individual? Should I be concerned and worried about my own personal data? And how does PDPA apply to organizations where I wear my second hat as an employee? Even if I'm running my own business, as a business owner, that's my second hat. So a bit of empathy that we are trying to strike here is when I understand how personal data is important to me, as an employee, I'll be able to protect others' personal data as well. So straight off the bat, PDPA, which stands for Personal Data Protection Act, is a law that governs what you do with personal data. You either collect it, you use it, or you disclose it, right? So comprehensively, these three actions. So PDPA is a law that governs collection, use, and disclosure of personal data of an individual, not just any data, not how many durian fruits you ate or how many durian seeds you're capable of eating, but it has to do with the personal data of individuals. It consists of 11 key obligations and DNC. DNC stands for do not call. The authority under PDPA is the PDPC, which is tasked with bringing about awareness, administer the provisions of PDPA, and enforce non-compliance with PDPA. So what is personal data by itself? Personal data is data that leads to the identification of an individual. Now, the data can be true or false. It can be in any forms, in electronic or non-electronic form, which is essentially paper. When you conduct surveys and people respond to the survey, that is data. The keywords are, it must lead to the identification of the individual. Now, personal data does not deal with ownership, nor the person who generates it or the organization that collect or compile it. Personal data is more about access because data is always there out in the internet and elsewhere. It is not applicable to BCI, which means business contact information. So you can freely hand out your name cards, your marketing collaterals. These are all your business contact information. Identity expressed as who we are, how we present ourselves, our introductions. These are all our identifiers, our most primary identifiers, which we typically mistake to be personal data. But data is a more general umbrella, all-encompassing term. Primary identifiers could be your name, phone number, postal address, med records, medical records, DNA profile, retinal scan, all kind of sensors which picks up what or who we are. So typically your PIN code is not a personal data. Even your postal address may not be personal data unless it's in combination of something else which leads to your identification. That is personal data. And then there are indirect identifiers, different ways in which a person can be identified. You have temporary identifiers and you have re-identifiers. Medical records, people with a complex kind of, I mean, you know that there was, Singapore had this reputation of the world's smallest baby, right? We just was discharged, very happy for their family. Life is always valuable in Singapore. Now that medical record is the smallest baby so far. That leads to the identification of the baby, so long as that record is not broken. So that would be a really personal data. Genomic studies, location-based. Yep, this morning I mentioned the same thing. A month back, many people will not be very happy, were not very happy with their location being identified as having visited Tanglin Mall, right? And you all know why that became infamous. So these are all the areas in which our personal data can be derived, exfiltrated, or extracted from. So why is personal data so important? 4 spatiotemporal points can identify 95% of individuals. Just 4, which means, take examples when an individual leaves the house, if I'm tracking that individual from home to work to maybe the gym, from gym maybe to an F&B outlet. Now you can go out and eat. So track that, or the school to which the children go. You can build a full profile about that individual. Even if you cannot identify his name and call him out and he recognizes to you, he or she, still able to build a profile. In US, with 15 demographic attributes, 99.98% of Americans. Okay, the remaining 0.08 are those living under the bridge, no social security numbers or no way of identifying them. Why do companies collect such data? To advertise, to understand customer needs, provide more products, make more money, essentially. So we've had an infiltration or a proliferation of data brokerage firms. There are about 4,000. That is as of 2019 and increasing by the day. They collect database of people and they scrape data from online records or buying them outright. Function creep, as I had mentioned in the morning, one of my favorite aspects, function creep. Okay, the word may sound creepy. IT professionals, if there are any amongst you, you'll know what scope creep is, right? Your client comes and tells you, hey, can you create the software for me? And then they keep adding features. So that is called a scope creep, when the scope of work enlarges and expands itself. Similarly, when you perform a certain function, you go into an adjacent business. So closer to home, Grab started off as people transportation company, people to place. Then they started identifying with Grab Food because COVID gave them a business opportunity there. So they expanded from just people transportation to food delivery. From food delivery, they identified lots of people, identified the spending patterns, they got to know their finances. Now they are into fintech. So function creep is also a critical aspect of getting into innovation. AI used in several aspects. So you got AI and the subsets under AI, which is your machine learning, deep learning, whether you use algorithms or whether you use neural networks, artificial neural networks to have machines study themselves and come out with answers. On a more simpler fashion, HR, when they are hiring, you take a large company, a large enterprise or an MNC, they receive hundreds of thousands of CVs every day. And for a human being to sit and scan through all of them is very difficult. So AI does the job for them. And in class, when we attend, we share a lot of tips and tricks as to what we can do to work things to our advantage, use technology to our advantage. These are some of the places, just some, it's not a comprehensive list, where a personal data which is not protected will affect you, right? Okay, now let's look, why is personal data important? You can find that Axiom, which is one of the largest data brokers in the US, they claim to have data of more than 2.5 billion people in more than 60 countries. You can rest assured Singapore is one of those 60. They claim to know 11,000 things about each person. Even if it's a marketing gimmick, if they know 1,000 things about a single person, it's too much already. Cambridge Analytica, those who may remember in 2019, our own parliament had set up a committee to interview and question Facebook on leak of data of Facebook users. A very high profile case because Cambridge Analytica used the psychological profiles, manipulated, came up with games which extracted people's personal data and then used it to help a president win in the US. An interesting case on Target. Our Singapore equivalent could be Takashimaya, it could be Robinson or Courts. So Target had a prediction model. We just looked at how the shoppers were moving around, right? Whether it was on the website or physical shop. Using certain data points, you remember the 4 spatio-temporal points, they were able to predict a high school girl was pregnant and the father didn't know. Okay, our story in training days will go extending about what happened. So if you're interested in knowing more, attend NTUC's 3-day training course. Right, so why should we be PDPA compliant? Because there are penalties, and penalties are not necessarily small. We all remember the Sing Health IHIS case, $1 million, 750 paid by IHIS, 250 paid by Sing Health. Why was it such high profile? because 1.5 million patients, that's 1/4 of our population, including our beloved Prime Minister's details, were compromised and released. Definitely unacceptable. Then BLS International Services, which is an Indian agency which issues visas to India, as well as passport renewals for Indians who are right now in Singapore, fined 5,000 in January this year. December last year, Have Halal Will Travel, a popular site for Muslims and Malays both, because when they travel overseas, they're looking for a place which has halal food. Their data was breached, so $8,000 fine. Chan Brothers, possibly a Chinese travel agent, they issued a warning in October last year. So you have all the cultures within Singapore, nobody excluded when it comes to data breaches. Secure Solutions, $120,000 fine. It used to be a credit card company or credit card related services company. I say used to because I tried looking up their website, nothing, no information. K-Box Entertainment, family karaoke or karaoke, depending upon which side of the pond or lake you're from, 50,000 fine. And if you haven't swum across to Batam, if you've taken the ferry, Horizon Fast Ferry, they were fined 54,000. Genki Sushi, something really popular in Singapore, within the closest mall to where we visit, 16,000 fine. Now, here, their employees' data was leaked. So even if you think, hey, I'm just manufacturing, I'm just B2B, doesn't apply to me, we need to think again. GrabCar, Courts, CDP, all varying fines, 5 figures, 6 figures. Elsewhere in the world, nobody spared. This Equifax was one of the cases which was really, really high profile in 2017. More than $500 million in fine, 150 million people affected. Uber, 148. Yahoo, a bank in the US. Morgan Stanley, here their problem was 60 million for not conducting robust hardware decommissioning process, which means not getting rid of companies' desktops, laptops, mobile phones, and other electronic devices. Insurance company, 16 million. In Europe in 2020, last year, highest fine was 50 million euros, lowest fine was 28 euros. But it puts Google onto the spotlight. And Google Ireland has been set up mostly as for their tax benefits, because Ireland is notorious for it. In spite of just being that, it's still attracted data violations. The other top GDPR fines, all in 8 figures, all very familiar names: H&M, British Airways, Marriott. So data protection, don't look at it as a compliance burden or cost. Cybersecurity issue can bankrupt. Even if you think solutions are expensive, consequences of data breach and reputational cost much higher. Don't merely focus on survival and think, hey, I just small potato lay, I never get caught. Sometimes the small potatoes are caught and made an example of, and we don't want to be that. Take that calculated risk. So typically, you should know what PDPA is, what DPO, who DPOs are, which is mandatory. You need to appoint a data protection officer. Understand what's good and bad data practice, because every business has data today. Even our hawker stall uncle is collecting data from people who order online through Grab Food or Deliveroo or Food Panda, any of those. And the smarter hawkerpreneurs, if they are going to come out soon, will be making full advantage of social media and this data to target their customers and improve their business. Understand liabilities, conduct audits, identify solutions, implement solutions. Get cybersecurity insurance. So good data practice, good tools, good products. Bad data practice, live in fantasy land. So I will focus on the more less technical aspects so that we understand a little more about PDPA. In the course, we go into a bit more detail. So when we collect data, or when you give your personal data to someone, you ask why. Is it for personal or domestic use? No problem. You don't attract the provisions of PDPA. But if you're an organization or you are an employee working on behalf of an organization and you do end up collecting data. If it is general, random, aggregated, anonymized, no problem. But if you are collecting personal data of individuals, so you remember the combination of identifiers, right? Then you have to be in compliance with PDPA, which comprises of the 11 key obligations and do not call. Now, there's a second time you'd have heard of the 11 key obligations. What about me as an employee, or what if I'm looking for a job, right? You have your CV, you have your whole life history listed out on it. Now you want to attract an employer. You still have to give your consent. With the power of giving your information to somebody lies in the individual, that is your hands. You may invite or you may apply through a recruitment agency, and the recruitment agency must tell you what he's going to do with your personal data and get your consent for it. Now, sometimes the employer may approach the recruitment agency, get into a contract and say, hey, find me some employees. At that point of time, the recruitment agency becomes a data intermediary. I'll introduce you to that, and must comply with protection, retention limitation, and data breach notification. This is 3 of the 11 key obligations. Recruitment agency continues to comply with collection, use, and disclosure, or inform the job applicant of collection, use, and disclosure of their personal data. Now, we also put up our information on social media, which includes your Facebook and LinkedIn. Now, that means you have given your deemed consent to use that personal data. You will lose many rights that you otherwise have, or you lose control over your own personal data. The employer can pick it up from there and don't need your consent. So the prospects of hiring, job applicant is not hired. I'm so sorry for the job applicant. Job applicant still has right to access and correct his or her own data. Hey, before you disregard me, do you know I've just completed a 3-day PDPA course? I've not added that in my CV because I just finished. I got my certification yesterday, or certificate, or statement of attainment yesterday. So you don't need to invest in 3 days on me. Neither do you have to spend on the training course. So it may work in your favor, but you can't ask the employer, tell me, why did you not hire me? That evaluation comes under legitimate interest, and under PDPA, that's excluded from being provided to the individual. Good news, the job applicant has been hired. Great. Goes to work for the employer. Employer enters into a employee offer letter or employment contract. Within that, employer will list out the obligations under PDPA, notification, collection, use, and disclosure of the employee's personal data, and will introduce the employee to internal facing P&P. P&P here stands for policies and practices, which is a catch-all phrase for policies, practices, procedures, SOPs, contracts, manuals, everything that has to do with documentation regarding the company. Now, for the purpose of entering, managing, or terminating an employment contract, no consent is needed from the individual because you're confirmed, right, to the job. The employer will retain the personal data of the employee till the purpose is fulfilled, which means when the employment is terminated or the employee resigns, after which, subject to employment laws, that personal data must be disposed of or destroyed. From an international perspective, US looks at it from freedom of speech point of view, individual rights point of view. EU says, hey, we believe in honor and dignity. Singapore has a different approach. It doesn't look at privacy as much as it looks at data protection. So it says privacy is a myth, which now the world is also drifting towards, because there's only so much about yourself you can keep private. So it puts the obligation onto the organizations to protect that data that it receives. So as an individual and organization, there are different focus on personal data. We'll look at it a little more. And while coming up with the PDPA, the act, the law itself, Singapore has referenced international standards and cross-border transfer protocols, including various treaties and other countries' personal data protection laws, while coming up with our own. We've even as recent as November entered into RCEP and ratified it in February, which stands for Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which has a chapter on e-commerce and on protecting online data and personal data. The new part, Singapore has begun to recognize certification schemes, which some companies will have. They're basically called as CBPR and PRP, which are issued by our IMDA. So as an individual, remember I said two hats, right? As an individual, how does PDPA safeguard or give control to me as an individual? I have the right to consent, withdraw, opt out, access, or correct, not be troubled with spam phone calls and scam phone calls. Then the Spam Control Act, which complements PDPA, both have been harmonized. Right to be notified when there's a data breach or notify the company if there's a data breach. Data portability, that is moving my data from one place to another. And reporting to police under various provisions of Eyewitness, Scam Alert, and Scam Shield. Now, as an employee of an organization, how does it apply? As an employee, I must protect individuals' personal data, manage risks. Now, the benefit is it brings overall competitiveness, allows me to innovate when I have that data, fostering trust between individuals, governments, and corporations, help business gain consumer confidence, keep my compliance costs manageable, not pay fines unnecessarily, and makes Singapore a trusted hub for data management. So little drops of water make a mighty ocean. All of us get together, we contribute to data protection and smart nation. Singapore shines. Now, companies always engage others to set up their own businesses, right? Let's look at how does an organization perform. Now, organization here is, again, an all-encompassing term. It could include an individual who's doing business. It could be a private limited company, a public listed company, an LLC, LLP, an association of persons, a group that can be recognized in one way or the other. So organization, they either collect, use, or disclose personal data of individuals. If they need to do that, they need to approach them directly, get their consent, state purpose, and notify those individuals. When the organization hires another organization, that organization could be a data intermediary. At this point of time, I say could. Why? Because a data intermediary is an agent. What differentiates a data intermediary or a DI from being an agent? The data intermediary should process personal data. What does processing mean? To carry out any operation or set of operations in relation to personal data. What do you mean by operations? Okay, I repeat my other joke, not the KK Women and Children General Hospital A&E OT operation. This is recording, holding, organizing, adapting, altering, retrieving, combining, transmitting, erasing, disposing, or destroying personal data only. So you can see that all data intermediaries are agents, but not all data agents are DIs, because if the agent is not processing personal data, is not a DI. So why is this important? If you see examples like research analytics, payroll administration, agents, or photographers, they all work on behalf of the organization. What differentiates DIs from agents is they have to comply with 3 key obligations: protection, retention, limitation, and data breach notification. So data breach notification is a new obligation. Prior to 1st February 2021 this year, there used to be 9 key obligations. They've added 2 more: data breach notification and data portability. The focus has been changed on the approach of law towards personal data. We will see that presently. So DIs act on behalf of organization and cannot make personal use. If it does, it must approach the individual directly, get consent, state purpose, and notify the individual. Now, just because organization hired data intermediary, must continue with the 11 key obligations. And DNC. Organizations would do well to do due diligence on data intermediaries and everybody else they deal with to make sure they are PDPA compliant. Otherwise, the organization can be held responsible. Right. So this is one key slide about PDPA. PDPA is Personal Data Protection Act, and I've come up with PDPA 124. You may have heard Data Science 101, AI 101, Machine Learning 101, right? Metallurgy 101. But what does PDPA 124 mean? It means there's one law, two main sets, and four main parts. A mnemonic which makes it easy for me to remember what PDPA is all about. And this screen is what I'm going to spend 10 minutes on, and some of the other aspects of PDPA, and will be done for your webinar for today. The one law is PDPA. The two main sets under it are data protection and DNC. All right, just give me a second for a sip of water. But please don't expect after a sip of water, my language will change. All right, let's see. Still speaking in English. Good. So two main sets, data protection and DNC. This tells me what to do, which means I must maintain my focus on these four main parts: governance and transparency, management of collection, use, and disclosure of personal data, taking care of the data in my possession, and addressing individuals' autonomy, which means individuals' rights, right? So when I say I am an organization in this case, because all PDPA does is focus on the individual. Now, how can I do this? How can I be in compliance with PDPA? Earlier, you say, what do I do? Are these four main parts? How do I do it? Okay, there are 11 key obligations you must be in compliance with. In the first case, it is the accountability obligation. Now, accountability here is different. It does not mean being financially responsible or fiscal responsibility. It means to demonstrate compliance with PDPA. That is what accountability is. It looks at three things: appointment of DPO, developing and implementing your PNPs. Remember, I said PNP is policies, procedures, practices, all those corporate documentation, which makes a company run, right? Making sure all of them are PDPA compliant and focusing on a complaint handling process. So this has been a new focus. Prior to 1st February 2021, the focus was almost entirely on consent. They called it the consent-centric approach, or the first consent principle, which means you get consent before you do anything with personal data. So the focus shifted to accountability. Under management of the personal data, there are three key obligations: notifying the individual of the purpose, getting their consent, and stating the purpose. So consent and purpose are two sides of the same coin, PDPA, personal data coin. You have a purpose, you must get consent to use it. If you take consent, you must limit it to the purpose for which you have collected that personal data. Now, these are collection points of data under care. Maintain accuracy because it can affect the individual. Wrong name, wrong bank ID, your salary doesn't get credited, or you don't get a home loan. The crux of PDPA: protect the personal data in possession of the organization. Retention limitation: how long can I keep that personal data? You have a purpose, when it's fulfilled, that's how long you keep it. You don't keep it beyond that. Transfer limitation: when you transfer data outside Singapore, there are certain conditions you need to satisfy. That is the purpose and processing. Under individual's autonomy, provide for access and correction. Now, this focus becomes an action that comes from the individual. The individual says, can I see my personal data? Organization have to give it. I want to correct my personal data, organization has to correct it. When there's a data breach, to be notified. This is new. And the other new one is data portability. Data portability is in the process of being enforced and rolled out in stages. Expected completion date this year end or next year early. This deals with individuals. These comprise your 11 key obligations. Now, you may remember I said 11 key obligations and DNC. So what is DNC? Do not call, which deals with specified messages. We'll see how that works out. Now, PDPA has other things. It talks about personal data, protection, breach, and enforcement of personal data. Also looks at rules. The other rules are contained within it, which deal with compliance, your implementation of PNPs, data intermediaries, which we have just gone through, DPO, which is mandatory to be appointed now, and exceptions, exemptions, prohibitions, and rejections, various things that cover you from PDPA obligations. So this is your helicopter view, or what I call as the eagle-eyes view of your Personal Data Protection Act. We've completed the whole thing. Of course, in the course, before I go there, this technology, being technology neutral, principles-based and complaints-based is the new focus of PDPA. It loves you to adopt technology, however small and simple, doesn't tell you which one you should, up to you. Principles-based are essentially your 4 main parts and 11 key obligations. So long as you follow them, you're good. And complaints-based, which is individual's autonomy. Please focus on that side. So when we get into the course, we look at breakdown. We start looking at each of these flows. We explain what accountability really means under PDPA. To meet obligations and demonstrate compliance, what are the requirements, accountability to individuals, and what are the tools you can use, the optional measures. Accountability, the framework has been enhanced to make companies more accountable. And this is how I think it basically looks like if you follow the flowchart. Then we look at management, which is collection, use, and disclosure. Again, all these are discussed. Now, just like how when you watch a trailer for a film, right, or a movie, some things in the trailer may not appear in the main feature film. So some of these slides are not there in the main feature film, but to give you an overview and understanding. But the key things are definitely covered within your training. So these are just very, very broad overviews. Now this is contained in your trainer's training session. Collection, use, and disclosure intent has to be notified. When do you notify? Manner and content. What information are you seeking from them? And other conditions. For purpose limitation, you can also see that there are certain conditions. How you will collect personal data and whether you've notified the individual about that purpose. Consent, probably the longest series of steps to follow in terms of obligations. Who are you collecting it from? Now, consent can also be actual or deemed, written or recorded, verbal, please record it, though it's optional. Conditions for deemed consent by conduct, contractual necessity or notification. The exceptions have legitimate interest, business improvement, and research and development. For these, you can accept that consent has been received as deemed. You must conduct assessments nevertheless, because it still puts a lot of rights within the individual's hands. So actual and deemed can be withdrawn. Certain conditions to do. Withdrawn means no consent. All of these, when purpose is fulfilled, under protection obligation, must dispose or destroy. Right, so this is what it looked like. Exceptions. All of the obligations will contain some exception or the other. Now this is how the assessment looks like. Now let's move forward. Under care. Data protection, accuracy, protection, retention, and transfer limitations. So accuracy, you can see that these are the things we cover under our course. Protection, what does it mean? And what are the steps I can take in order to protect an individual's personal data? Right, so we should be completing in next 10 minutes because the last 10 minutes, I will be handing it over to my friend and colleague, James, who has appeared out of the blue with a blue background. So applies to data intermediaries, the same things. Now let's look at retention. These are again the conditions. Don't keep it just in case. Different things that you can do in terms of returning the data to the individuals or anonymization. This is my favorite, anonymization, because according to my law, data once created should never be destroyed. Again, a DI is involved with this particular obligation. Transfer. When can you transfer? And the conditions. in order to be able to transfer data from Singapore to overseas. Individuals' autonomy. We will be looking at access correction, data breach notification, and data portability. All the things we should do under each of those key obligations. So access and correction, this is how it looks like. Here you must record some new provisions under the new law. Correction, similar to access. Data breach notification. You will learn separately what is a data breach and how you can manage a data breach. So these are guides which are given. This is a guide which is issued by PDPA or PDPC, if you will. That's the authority on managing and notifying data breach. On the obligation itself, what are you supposed to do and how are you supposed to deal with a data breach is well covered. Again, this is the third key obligations which involves a DI. So you can see it appearing again. Data portability, the last obligation. So in our NTUC training, when we train you, we will adopt what is called as the Wing Chun method of teaching you PDPA. I can't tell you more because it is like most SIFUs, a secret. When you come to the course, you will know how you learn PDPA automatically as you go along. And finally, DNC, which is the second set. Data protection first set, DNC second set. So we learn about the different aspects of DNC. And what are the organization's obligations? So these are all exclusions. So when we ask about exceptions and exclusions, yes, I have created a comprehensive list of all exception to collection, use, disclosure of data, transport, access and correction, and do not call. Enforcement. How does PDPC enforce provisions of PDPA? Now, if the complainant is not happy, they can go to the first of all, they ask them to resolve amongst themselves. PDPC is very conciliatory, right? But if the organization doesn't take it seriously and the complainant approaches PDPC, PDPC will jump like an angry bird and investigate. If it finds violation, jail or fine. Pretty heavy fines, $1 million, 10% of revenue, that is gross turnover, not net profits. Individuals up to 200,000. And organization up to 1 million, and in dictionary tax address harvesting 1 million again. Employees also have a personal liability. If you behave in what PDPA defines as egregious conduct which is very damaging, then $5,000 fine and imprisonment or imprisonment. So the birds and bees, here's the bee, which talks about data protection complaints when it's received. We discuss steps, detailed steps on how to resolve problems or complaints that you receive. There are 5 levels: initial complaint, assessment, investigation, corrective actions, and all the time responding to the individual. We will discuss DPOs, the ways a DPO conducts his business, the DPO's roles and responsibilities. A DPO can be insourced within the organization, outsourced. You can ask someone, like I'm an outsourced DPO for many companies. Could be centralized or decentralized, or different offices have different DPOs. There are some data protection tools that I use in terms of being PDPA compliant. These are all animated slides as well. Here's a sample. Once the tools are created, there's a pictographic representation of data protection officers tools, and this is what a data protection officers checklist on PNP and assessment and analysis, inculcating a DP culture, working with senior management, implementing, changing, training, and auditing. So it's just a sample DPO R&R. This is a sample data protection management program, which is converted into entries you can make to find out whether they are PDPA compliant, and the abbreviations are all given there. So training and communications plan, we go into much further detail, this is just a very simple description of how you go about training and communicating with your employees. pdpcs.gov.sg, the website of PDPA, lists out 9 key competencies, framework, and training roadmap for a DPO. Some of these courses are created and delivered by NTUC Learning Hub itself. In fact, I have created one for design thinking for data protection for NTUC, which is already run. We've run 2 classes last month. That was the last stage that you can see. It's being marketed as complying with local data protections while innovating new products and services. So slightly different title, but same course. Right, with that, we come to the end of your PDPA webinar. This is to do with data governance because that was a major part of what we were expected to do. And this is about design thinking covered as well, critical thinking, how does it mean? And time for change. With that, I've come to the end of your railgun or minigun presentation on PDPA. And now I'd like to hand over the stage and its keys to James. The name is Bond, James Bond.
Thanks, Yentao. Thanks for a wonderful presentation. Yentao, if you can maybe you can send me the hosting rights.
Oops, hang on. Yeah, I'm sorry, Perlene and the rest of you, but there's a lot to cover, and 1 hour is too less to cover a 3-day course. But I'm just hoping that it just gives you an idea. It's supposed to give you a flavor of what's happening. Now, I'm not able to give you the hosting.
Oh, I have the host rights, I think.
Yeah, you are the one who gave me, so you have to take it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you guys were supposed to see it like a movie, right? Not to absorb everything. Yes, Diana, you're right. It's a trailer. So trailer is really fast. Yes,
Okay,
it's
can you see
possibly
the
the
screen?
worst presentation. Yeah, the good feedback as well.
All right. Okay. So guys, very big thank you to Yentao for the wonderful presentation. And for my part, I'll just like to brief you guys on our 3-day fundamentals of the Personal Data Protection Act 2020. It's a 3-day course. And the original course fee is $720. And if you are a Singaporean or PR, age 21 to 40, all you have to pay is $425. And if you are age above 40, the amount payable is $122. So this course is applicable in terms of funding for both as an individual or if you're signing up under a company. Okay. So let's look at the class schedules. In fact, we have quite a number of class schedules open and available in August. So some of you may have maybe working on the weekdays, and if you're looking forward for weekend classes, we do have. So check out the schedule here. Okay, and I'll just go on to show the most important slide, which is the website. So I've actually shared the website for the PDPA class in the chat, or you can actually whip out your mobile phone to just scan, and it will bring you to our website. Okay, and once you enter our website, very simple. You see a button called reserve a spot. What you do is just click on reserve a spot, and the next step is either you sign up as an individual or as a company sponsored training. Okay, so I'll leave the Q&A here for Yentao to answer and myself. I'll leave this slide on.
Yep, there will be an assessment, Angel. All WSQ courses require an assessment to be conducted. Yep, and my apologies again if some of you found it too fast. Like someone very correctly said, this is a trailer, so it's going to be very racy, right? But I can assure you that the main course will be in a more relaxed fashion. Like I said, this is just to let you know, oh, there are all these things. You will get a statement of attainment, which is not necessarily a certificate of attendance, mostly online as of now. MCQ, don't worry, assessment, when you attend my class, then it'll be the, then you will not be worried. Same slides used. Okay, these slides I've created myself, so I don't think any institute in Singapore or any trainer will be using these slides because these are stuff that I've taken over 1,000 hours to create after training over 1,000 over students, 1,200 now coming up there. So if you do other fundamentals of PDPA, I don't know what their training style is, entirely up to you. Okay, thanks some of you. Hey, a lot of my alumni and ex-students are here. Great to see you guys. Happy to see you.
Nice. That's
Yep.
nice.
Yep.
I think there's a question on, let me see.
Yeah, and sorry, I don't share these slides, so I only use it during my training.
Okay.
However, if you NTUC has also in collaboration done the Skills Future, yeah, 1 hour is more or less like this thing lah.
Yeah.
No, the webinar, James. I think I can share the link with them, so they can also go and check that because that's a 3-hour full webinar they have recorded.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. You can share that with them as well.
Yeah, I just got it. Let me just paste it onto this. So you can, that is much slower than what I've done with you guys. That was a 3-hour. It also includes, okay, where do I find share now?
Okay, let me stop sharing. Do you want to
no,
share?
This is just, no. I'm just sending the link, copying link.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I think
hang on.
one of you guys asked about the age, right? So you can actually contact our course consultant or just submit an inquiry on our website. So earlier on when I shared with you the slide on this one, once you go in, you can also click on inquire now, and then you can contact our course consultants for more information regards to payment, UTAP, and all this, right? You can just connect directly with our course sales consultant. Yeah.
Yeah, 23 hours is spread over three full days, 3 calendar days. So which is 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. Yeah. When you see the course duration.
Yeah, this is a virtual class, 3 days virtual, but over Zoom. Okay.
Yes,
all the slots displayed conducted by you, Yan Tao.
Oh, they are, is it? I don't know.
One of the questions they asked.
Yes, I don't know. I wish I could. James, that is your answer, not mine.
Okay, I think for Yan Tao, it'll be on the 16th of August, 25th of August, 30th of August. These 3 out of the 4 August dates, right? 3 of them, 16th, 25th, and 30th. These are the dates that's conducted by Yan Tao, as well as the 4th of September. So let me just put it in 16 August, 25th August, 30th August, and 4th September. Yep. Okay. Any questions? Applicable for UTAP funding, can check in with our cost consultant. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm not sure if I can help you find, let me see if I can find the link straight off from Singapore Skills Future page, because this was organized by Skills Future. Or it should be under Smart Nation, possible. Okay, just give me a second while I dig out. Okay, yes, I think I found it. Oh no, not this. Okay, got it. Hang on. This is the main link itself. Let me know if you still find the link broken. I'll put it into the chat group here.
There's a question on assessment.
All these assessment and other questions, it's a written assessment, it's a test,
Written assessment.
not
Yeah.
multiple choice. It's in essay format, which is, we are basically looking at 2-line, 3-line or 4-line answers, nothing really long. No need to worry about grandfather stories, because if you do grandfather stories, must add grandmother also, because we believe in diversity, equity and inclusion.
Right. Let me see the Q question and answer. If we just want to clarify certain points, do we approach PDPC? Yentao, there are some questions also on the under the Q&A.
Okay.
We will just maybe finish
No,
that.
but there are too many questions and very technical.
okay.
Some of you have asked
Okay.
because those answers will require at least about 5 minutes to 10 minutes per
Okay.
question, right? So, okay, Alvin was okay. James, this is something that you guys have to figure it out. For example, Alvin says he has already attended the 2-day PDPA course from NTUC Learning Hub. So he says he wants to update or upgrade himself.
Okay.
Are they discounts? I mean, after you pay, I think you end up paying $50 for or $80 for an $800 course. So you want an additional discount on that? I'm not sure.
So okay, so I think the most common question that most of the trainees who have taken up the 2-day course ask is, are they still eligible for the funding for this 3-day class? Answer is yes.
Yeah, okay, there
because
you go.
these are two different course titles as well as approved separately by SSG. So yes, you can take up the 3-day class.
And deductible from Skills Future credit. Yes, correct.
Yes.
And Lim, yes, we will touch on few various aspects about photography. UTAP funding, I don't know. What is UTAP funding, James?
UTAP, it's when they sign up for the NTUC card, and they'll sort of get an UTAP. But for this UTAP one, it's better if you get the answer from our course consultant, our sales consultant. So you can contact our sales consultant directly from the website. Let me just share that again.
Okay, while he's sharing that, the questions on iOS audit, I think you're referring mostly to 27001. So I mean, these questions I will answer during the training, right? You're certified as DPO a few years back. Do you need to retake? There's no minimum qualification requirements for being a DPO, just like you don't have a qualification requirement for being a director. The only thing is you should be a major, you should not be mentally unsound, so there's no badge requirement for being a DPO. But a DPO needs to be well equipped in the sense that if you don't know what are the latest changes, it could be a challenge to your own work. We don't do a wider scope region because all laws are mostly very territorial within the law of the land. So the focus is more on PDPA, but we will be referencing what will happen when Singapore personal data is being sent overseas. That comes under transfer limitation. We are qualified to be a DPO in any company. Yeah, sure. Why not? Especially if you have a mentor like me. No, I'm joking. Huh? You can have anyone as your mentor. Well, thanks, Jessica. I don't know whether to see that as a compliment or otherwise. I'll take it as such. Certification will be a statement of attainment. That's a certification. Attendance you will definitely get, I'm sure, but you'll get a statement of attainment because the WSQ course. It is online course. Yes, there will be a lot of additional materials, Jazz. In fact, I'm not sure if I mean the e version is available through our LMS called Canvas. So you'll be able to see the course material. The course material is actually given by PDPC. It's their copyright. My slides are my slides. It's only about 150 slides, but PDPC slides is about 400 and
275.
No, there are 436 slides and 76 pages.
Yes, pages.
Of hard copy. Yeah, learner's guide is 200 pages, A4 sheet, but there are 400 plus slides. And added to mine, it's 550. But we cover it quite comfortably. You can check with anybody who has taken my class before. They've been quite kind to me in their reviews and feedback.
Yeah. So I think one of the questions that a lot of trainees ask is, in terms of the learner's guide, we will definitely send over to your address the hard copy of the learner's guide, which is about 276 pages. And for the soft copy, because this is PDPC IP rights, we cannot send to you the e-copy, but it will be housed in our Canvas training management system. So when you log into our Canvas, you will be able to access the learner's guide for this PDPA course as well.
Okay, Hui Kian's question. It's a good start. That's what I can say. Whether you'll be equipped to be a DPO, it's a good start. It can be quite addictive in the point of view that if it catches your fancy or your attention, you will want to learn more about data protection, because personal data is just one level. It can, continue much further. There are 9 competencies that I've shown you in terms of data protection. Yeah. So as you move on, you can develop your own. I believe it may go up to YouTube because FB was running as FB Live this morning. They may put it up on YouTube as well, is what they say. Yeah, I don't have that because this is being managed by Smart Nation, which is a collaboration between the Prime Minister's Office, Smart Nation, Skills Future, SSG, and NTUC. So a lot of biggie wiggies are there. So I was just a small mouse trapped between all big lions, like James.
Yeah, I'm a small mouse as well.
Not as small as me. Yes, there are plenty of courses for DPO, Vijayan, Arumugam. Right, I think we've covered most of the questions. We are also past 5 now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Irene. Thanks, Irene. Thanks, Jeffrey. Yes, I remember you, Jeffrey. Yep, that's just an overview.
Good. I think we are good for today. Thanks everyone for taking your time down for this webinar.
Look forward to seeing you in the classes to come.
Yep.
Yeah, Nora Ismail is also here.
Wow, so you got a nice following, Yentao.
Yeah, they all quite a few people like it. Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Well, it's good that you can still recognize some of the students.
Yeah.
Really good.
Fuad also, I think, may have been there. Magrifa also sounds familiar.
Mhm.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Are we going to wait till the last one drop out, or?
Oh, I think we can close the window already. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.